Your mind is already probably brimming with new ideas about what you'd like to do next time you pick up a camera. To give you a head start, we've laid out a few key points from the best in the business, giving you their ideas on what to do, how to do it, and just as importantly, what to avoid when taking photos.
Sometimes the amateur photograph is much better than the professional. A photograph that answers all the problems of technique, exposure, and focusing, and so forth. If that's all it does, then one might well prefer an amateur photograph that has a good deal of understanding and love, but may at the same time lack the sharpest focus and the perfect exposure. One mistake is to be so obsessed with the technique as to miss the human factor. Don't follow the fashion of the day. Whatever suits that moment best should be the way you take the picture. And also, I would say that photograph in a very natural fashion. You don't want the people to be distracted by the camera and your presence. And so when they look at you, they should be looking at somebody who expresses some kind of kindness. If the camera becomes too much of a presence, just put it down, wait until they're more accustomed to it, to being there, and they go back to being themselves. Very important. Ideally, the professional photograph is better because it goes beyond simply being a technical achievement.
You have to have all the technical stuff ready and working so that you can really concentrate on the subject. Because the problem with portraiture and sitting for a portrait is that it's an extremely unnatural situation. Sitting in front of a camera, trying to be relaxed, trying to show who you are, and people are insecure about how they look. They're insecure about, their face, their skin, their hair. All of those things come to the forefront when you're sitting for a portrait. So how do you get someone to forget all that? You can just be sensitive to what the person is saying and listen to people and understand where they've come from just from the moment they've stepped into your building or into your room and think, well, they've just come from a big fight with their mother, and how am I going to get that out of their head and get them to concentrate on what we're doing here? So you just need to kind of be aware of all the signals that are there. And as a photographer, you should find a subject or a group of people that you have an interest in, because you're going to be more involved. You want to think about the lighting. You want to think about how you're posing something. You want to think about all the bad, extraneous things that are in the shot that shouldn't be there. So for me, it's making it very minimal. But that's, I'm not telling everyone to shoot that way. But you want to kind of really look at the scene and think about what's in that picture. Every time I've ever kind of been on the street and I hand a camera to someone and I say, take a picture of me in front of the Eiffel Tower or whatever it is, inevitably, they've centered my head in the middle of the frame with all this space up on top. And that's the proof of an amateur photographer. So I think framing is really important. I've been very lucky as a photographer because I started out thinking of myself as an artist. I didn't think of myself as a commercial photographer who was also an artist. I was an artist who took portraits. And I never, wavered from that, really. So in a sense, people came to me to have me do what I did, which was to take a certain kind of picture. So I really stuck to studio portraiture and made it really my life. I think the best advice I could give any amateur photographer is to have your stuff ready, have your lights ready, have your camera ready. Don't make your subject sit there waiting. There's nothing worse than waiting to be photographed.
I don't control it. I look for it. It's a complete different thing. So there's some photographers who control everything, and I prefer to discover it. I just like to look for things that are hidden, that are not necessarily the surface. I'm interested in what is beyond the surface, what is in the corners, what is underneath. A photograph for me is something I feel rather than see. So it's not, I see it with my eyes, but I see it with other senses too. And to translate all that into a flat piece of paper eventually is the trick. Through photography, I could discover the world as I can discover myself. We all get kind of started by our parents, and then we go our own way and continue whatever threads they started, or fight against it and rebel against it. But it's also from your own inner world, and it's a meeting of those two things. If you're going to be a photographer, number one, you have to love it, and number two, you have to be dogged about it and hang on to it and want to do it so badly that no matter how hard it is, you're going to keep doing it. It's important to just respond to the world the unique and only way that you can, and if you are true to yourself. And so therefore, then you will have the kind of pictures that you would probably be happy with, because they would be a direct indirect relation to you. Not just being influenced by photography. In fact, I'm least influenced by photography. I just do photography, but I try not to be influenced by other people's work, but be influenced more by other things.
That's interesting.
And you walk around and you see something, and sometimes I take a picture that Andre Cortez would have taken, or Brassai would have taken, or Giacomelli would have taken, because it's like meeting an old friend. There is their picture, and it appears, and I click the shutter, but it's not necessarily a picture I'll use. It's just saying hello.
What do you think separates an amateur photograph from a professional photograph?
Not very much. I mean, I think the professionals, they're more patient. Pictures are really just about picture making. You know, every picture is about another picture that's been made previously. I mean, there's a whole vocabulary of photography. And the more aware you are of photography, the more you're aware of this whole kind of tradition, and you have a kind of stockpile of imagery in your head, both your work and other people's work. Taking a feeling, taking an idea about a place, and those may be two separate things, or they may be sort of overlapping in some way, and then figuring out how to construct a photograph that conveys that allows the viewer to enter into that space and re-experience what you first experienced in some ways. The camera I was using today was an 8x10 view camera. It's something that I've been using since almost the beginning. You know, maybe when I was 19, I started using 8x10. I love it because you can actually see the picture. The lens projects an image on a sheet of ground glass that's about 8x10 inches, and you see the whole image. So you can really create the composition and see how things are lining up. It just enables you to see the image. One of the great things about working with these large format cameras, 4x5 or 8x10, is that the lenses are very good. I mean, they're often beautifully made, and they have a certain way of sculpting the space. And with a big wide city scene, you're more the color. It's a little harder to control as opposed to like an interior or kind of more domestic scene. But the light is key. Clearly, one way to get better as a photographer or in terms of making pictures is to use a manual camera. Because if you use a manual camera, you can understand the relationship between, let's say, the f-stop and the shutter speed, and the way those two things are reciprocal to each other. And you'll never be able to understand those basic relationships by using an automatic camera.
we have lots of photographs, mostly from vacations that we've taken.
The people I'm traveling with haven't been here before, so just kind of trying to catch some scenes for them to remember.
If we go to the ball game, or even if we just, playing around the backyard and the kids diving and stuff, so.
It's like one moment in time.
Because that's when you want to save these moments so you don't forget them, right? And also, like this, I want to be able to take a picture of this and send it, because this is a digital camera, I can send it to my parents and say, isn't this crazy, in Times Square?